So this is, I mean, I think we've in previous clay fests we've been kind of presented and talked about Cobbauge, and obviously Bukai are very fundamental to the whole project, and we have a whole series of other kind of partners. But it was an Interreg program or a research program which was also funded by the European Union, and we had partners in France as well as in the UK. So what is Cobbauge? It is a mixture. It's a sort of a hybrid, sort of mixed kind of construction system using sort of traditional cob on the left there and lightweight earth on the right. And it's a system where she combines the kind of properties of both into using the kind of structural brilliance of cob and the kind of thermal ability of light earth. And it's
sorry, Anthony, the screen's not sharing, I don't think.
Is it not? Right. Okay.
So I can see your screen, Anthony.
Screen, but not if you've changed slides, we can't see that.
Okay. Shall I unshare?
So we've got the initial Clayfest 2023, the cover slide.
Okay.
So
I'm going to Katie, who's also been working on the project, is going to try and sort it out.
So I think what you might have to do, Katie, is so in the top right on the PDF you're on, there's the arrows. I think if you click those, then it might make the PDF full screen once you've shared again.
I think we actually want the PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, if you've got a PowerPoint, that's even better.
1 second.
Yeah.
Full screen, okay?
And then we have to display. We have to swap. I think we have to swap to swap.
Yeah, we can see the PowerPoint now, but yeah, just click. You know, in the
presenter view slide. That's it.
Oh, but, can you see the presenter view or the normal view?
No, just we can just see the slides then, so you'll be able to see your notes.
Can you see it's swapping now? Working?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Katie. Effortless. Thanks, guys.
So you can see that I'm changing now to the slides, so you can see that. Brilliant. Okay. And these are where the project partners all kind of originate. So we're in sort of east in Norfolk, and we have Plymouth University. We've got the Bukai, and then we've got 2 universities in France and a national park with an architect called Francois Strief, who did the first project, the pilot project. I think we might have sort of displayed before. So, as I said, it's a composite construction system with made out of cob and the lightweight earth. So the cob being the kind of the material on the right hand side there, and the lightweight earth on the left there. And it's a system with the walls. We sort of looked at different kind of thicknesses of the walls, and what came out best was about a 600 wide wall, half of which is the light earth and half of which is the cob. And obviously the lightweight earth is considerably less dense than the cob. And the cob is about 1,500 kilograms per cubic meter. I think the light earth is about 500, I think, somewhere like that. So the kind of the whole raising bets for the project was to see how we could bring cob construction into the sort of 21st century and to comply as a kind of unified material to comply with thermal regulations, because obviously it's kind of structural abilities are kind of well proven, but we needed to kind of meet building regulations and to operate, to reduce energy demands within buildings. And we wanted to get a system which at the current time get to the U values of under 0.3. So that was the crucial thing. So we followed on from a number of two other projects. One was the pilot building, which was mentioned in France, and the second building was a classroom which was built at Plymouth. And we kind of sort of stood on their shoulders, very much so, learning from them and using kind of all the expertise from the kind of earth industry right across the board. The project sits in Fakenham in the east of England, just northwest of Norwich. And this just shows you the geology of sort of very old clays from sort of rough, Cretaceous, from millions and millions of years ago. And these just show the clays in the UK, which are kind of glacial clays. A little bit more about that later. The site is a kind of suburban site, just out on the outskirts of Fakenham, a small market town in North Norfolk. And we had a lot of the land itself is kind of quite sandy, and there was a little bit of clay. And I can remember Roland coming up and seeing the site and saying, "Oh, we probably could sort of build. There's a bit of clay in here. We could probably build with it." But we found there probably wasn't enough clay, and we were going to have to do a lot of refining. This is what went in for planning permission, and I'm going to quickly go through the plans. This is the sort of site layout. You can see that the house is basically sitting here, quite a small plot, but right on the edge of the town. And it's a 3-bedroom house, 3 bedrooms, open living, kitchen and dining area here, kind of entrance here off the road underneath that canopy. And a green roof on top, and just the elevations and sections. So first of all, was sourcing the clay and looking at kind of all the kind of methodology that we wanted to use. And one of our kind of roles in the project was to create a kind of guide to designers, and that you can find all this information on the website, on the Cobbauge website. So this was a kind of a guide showing you all the different ways and methods which we've been employed on the 3 projects, and a kind of distillation of our findings. We also produced alongside this is a details package of various different kind of details for all the kind of elements of the build, from the foundations through to the walls to the roof and windows and doors, looking at the different ways, different components, and combining the way that we kind of were working in France, and the way we were working in Plymouth, and the way we were working in Norfolk. And kind of it's a sort of composite of when the French obviously details are very much more developed from Bauge, from their cob traditions. Ours were kind of developed a little bit from the cob traditions of the Southwest. And then we kind of layered onto that kind of ways of trying to build in terms of the 20th century, 21st century, in terms of kind of trying to speed up the build a little bit, and think of kind of ways of kind of simplifying the construction. I think most people know, there's a lot of clay around, and this is the clay that we needed 2 sources of clay, because the cob is obviously kind of not as rich. There's a kind of the cob has not as much percentage clay as the light earth, and we needed kind of on the light earth, we need kind of quite a good, strong, good pure clay, about 40% clay. But what we found is very locally in Bilney near Durham, a perfect cob mix for the structural walls, and that is, you can see, is just due south of our site. And this is from the glacial deposits which were laid down, from the ice sheets. And this is obviously a kind of a strip of clay that runs right through Norfolk and then to Suffolk down to Essex. This provided a perfect kind of material for the cob mix. Similarly, for the light earth, where we needed a much more kind of a much richer clay for the slip to mix up the light earth with which we use hemp shiv, we found a kind of really good stretch of clay, which is called the Kimmeridge clay, which was deposited 155 million years ago, and that runs kind of sort of going down to the southwest, and these two clays obviously kind of very, within 20 and 30, 40 miles of the site, and obviously which are great because of reducing transport costs, energy, and so forth. And so this 6% clay content makes it perfect for the light earth. We, in the process of kind of just discovering, we're just making sure that we got the right properties of the clay. We did a lot of in-house clay testing, again guided by Buckeye and by Plymouth and France, and did shrinkage tests and rolling tests just to look at the strength and the kind of the qualities of the clay, and everything kind of crucially is a lot about kind of feeling and sensing what the kind of from handling the clay, but also kind of watching how much it shrinks, and making sure that it's not the shrinkage isn't too great. We also did laboratory tests, and they were done by Plymouth. Our clay for the cob clay, these are kind of the boundaries for the kind of particle size. The green here, particle size is for the cob. The building clay is that kind of curve here, so it's just at the upper limit, but absolutely kind of well suited for the cob. And this is the Kimmeridge clay, the purer clay, which is kind of considerably outside that kind of band for the cob, structural cob, but it shows you it's got a higher clay content. There were lots and lots of technical meetings. I mean, this is a 4-year project, to and fro between all the members. I think 3 of these people are on the current conference at the moment. I think we've got Tom, got Roland, and I think we've got Barry, or I saw his name there as well in the participant list. All the materials we were brought together on site. We had a very enterprising, or have still got a very enterprising local contractor who was really willing and really interested in having a go and looking at a low carbon building. And they were just across the site, literally 5 minutes walk from the site. So we kind of established a kind of base there for bringing all the materials, the clay from Durham, straw locally, the hemp shiv was from Yorkshire, and we got all the skips and stuff for mixing, and this was all done on site. The system is because of the kind of sort of frail nature of the kind of lightweight earth, we've developed a formwork system which casts the 2 materials together. And it's in the sort of form of zigzag, so that they bind, and you increase the surface area between the kind of the structural cob and the lightweight cob. And the amazing thing about clay is, probably everybody knows, it has this fantastic ability to kind of bind itself together, or kind of join itself together. And so there was no problem about these 2 surfaces, these 2 materials kind of sticking together. They form a fantastically robust kind of joint. And then the cob and the light earth is then cast in layers and lifts between this shuttering, and the shuttering is made of timber with the light metal mesh to allow breathability and drying out during the process. And we looked at different ways of doing the cob, this formwork. And we'll see later how there were various different kind of either we kind of lifted in, did the formwork in the full height, or we did it in kind of these 600 or 800 heights, and then shifted the formwork up as we moved up through the wall. Another crucial element of the kind of the laying of the cob is using this placing tool, which because we've got these two halves, I've got the light and the heavyweight of the cob material. We need to kind of create a gap while we lay one for the second material to be placed alongside. So this placement tool allows for that kind of creating that gap and that fill, and also allows for that kind of if I go back, allows for this kind of the zigzag profile for making good contact between the two surfaces. We had a lot of training. Buckeye were doing originally, if it hadn't been for COVID, we would have had kind of on-site training with the Buckeye, but they have done this amazing set of training videos and descriptions, which takes you through every single process, which was very, very incredibly useful. But on site we had Paul and Sol Barkley, who were cobbers in the West Country, and they had built the whole of the Plymouth build of the Plymouth classroom, and they came down twice or three times to kind of advise to take us through the techniques. Obviously, East Anglia has an adobe tradition of clay blocks, and so it's sort of not. We needed to kind of have a kind of slightly different viewpoint of how we were going to, how we processed and trained the builders on site. But this went on for two times. And we did our kind of practice. We did our practice runs in the kind of in the buildings nearby, just seeing how we can and how the process. And here you can see the kind of plating tool, and here we are kind of putting the cob in and pumping it down. Now the clay, the cob needs to be kind of stamped, have quite a good kind of compaction, whereas the light clay wants to be lightly tapped because we don't want that to be too dense and to keep its insulative properties. So we then went on to we now move on to the kind of the actual process of the build itself. Foundations. We were wanting to use rubble foundations, and they were approved, and we got them through building regulations. But the cost there was always this kind of looking towards the cost, and for the contractor whose the contractor was also the developer, and this house is going to be either rented out or will be sold. But the cost unfortunately, the cost of a no concrete foundation were too great at the time, so we went for we used the concrete, and so we've got a good foundation, plinth at least 500 millimeters high, faced in brick, and then we start our kind of cob and Cobbauge kind of lift from that point up there, from this point up here. So that's the brickwork and the blockwork in internal and external leaf, just back there with a kind of good with insulation separating the two, so we get good. We avoid any thermal breaks. And this is kind of the plinth as we're building. There's the living room and the bedrooms at this end, and the entrances along the front there. We looked at different ways of doing the formwork I originally spoke about, but what the builders felt was going to be kind of quicker than just using 600 high lifts, was to create a formwork which was full height on the outside, or on the inside rather, and then have the lifts for kind of accessing the kind of and filling the formwork. The 600 lifts on the inside, so that we would bring those up as we went through the building. In the end, it kind of more or less went that way, but it got a little bit more complicated than the kind of images here suggest. We also reused all the, one of the things was we wanted to reuse, and we wanted to sort of like a reservoir of formwork. And our reservoir starts with the Plymouth build, and this is all the formwork that came up from Plymouth, and it was reused on the things on the Segment build here. And here you can see the full height formwork, which we erected with the reused formwork along here, and then into the right height, building on top of that. And it being supported from the inside, and this is all ready to cob. And this is where all the formwork up. This is around about May, I think, June 2022. 2022, is that? Yeah, 2022. And then we prepared all the materials on site. Now, I think one of the things we probably should have, well, not on site, but next door to the site in the builder's yard. Now, one of the things we should have done, I think, well, we all know now, is that we should have had all this material done actually on the site, because there was a kind of trips back and forward. Although it's only 5 minutes, it actually added to the time. It was quite time consuming. But we mixed the cob with the straw in these big and were stored and kept sort of the right moisture content, and then transferred to site, and then transferred to wheelbarrows, and then placed in the formwork. The light earth, we had dug a big pit to mix up the clay slit. It's a really lovely grey kind of colour, the Kimmeridge clay here. And then we used previously the shiv, the hemp shiv, and that were being used, various different machines used to make it, but we found an ordinary concrete mix actually kind of worked perfectly well, taken to site. Then we this is the placing of the cob, and you can see the two layers, the outer layer being the kind of light earth, which is the grey, and the cob on the inside. And here's Katie kind of helping them, giving demonstrations to everybody how to do it, how to lay and tamp down the cob. And then we had a number of open days, which kind of during the course of the whole project, just to kind of showcasing how we were doing it, and getting people, we've got a huge amount of interest from that. And these are just progressive shots as we go up, as we go up with the various different lifts. Also of we needed to kind of look at the moisture content continuously, and these are very, very simple Ramin wooden sensors which just measure moisture, and looking at four points during the thickness of the wall, 2 in the lightweight and 2 in the cob. And these are going down, and we're now actually at about, we measured them yesterday, and we're around about the 15 to 10% moisture content. Windows, obviously kind of crucial part of the kind of detailing of these walls. We used a Barry Honeysett, who's kind of advised on this project, the Plymouth project, and our project, developed this kind of lintel system, which is 3 bits of timber, with a plywood underside to hold the cob up, and they're all bolted together, and that gives a really, really good lintel, which we adopted in this scheme, with kind of insulation, wood fibre insulation, to prevent any thermal bridges. And the openings, we kind of, the sides were kind of mesh as well, again to allow breathability and drying out as quickly as possible. And then as this is going up later on in the year, and then we installed at that point these big glulam beams, which we in this project we avoided any internal walls out of cob, made so that everything kind of all the structure was supported off the outside walls. These are all the sort of load-bearing. These are the load-bearing Cobbauge walls with the glulam beams there, and for the internal walls we did those out of sub-partitions, timber sub-partitions, but obviously recognising the shrinkage in the cob walls, we allowed this kind of detail which allows for deflection and shrinkage of the actual cob external walls. And then we had one big beam across here, which was which is all filled, which is a timber structure, which is all filled with light cob.
Anthony, just to interrupt, you've got just under 5 minutes left.
Okay, great. During the build, we had some interesting kind of fungi growing on the outside of the building. Sort of spores, obviously, kind of came into one area, so we've got a kind of layer of fungi there. And these are the roof details with a good overhang, the good boots and the good hats. And putting the kind of the posi joists over the top for the roof. We managed to get over the roof sorted out by winter, but we hadn't actually finished. Unfortunately, we hadn't finished all the cobbing by then, and that went on into the following year. Casing and surfaces is fairly straightforward. We're using a mesh, a sort of a mesh on the and then covering that up with clay as well. And you can see here, this is sort of in the process of drying out. Some of the formwork still left on the walls, but generally kind of mostly stripped away, and just the crucial drying out period with open windows. And this was the end. Well, this was the beginning of this year, and you can see this is the lightweight, and it's beautiful, kind of a really lovely texture on the outside. But obviously, because it's quite frail, this is then covered in lime render. And so where we are now is this is now all lime rendered on the outside. This is the canopy. This is the entrance area. And the house is now from the outside all weatherproof, and looks fantastic. And this is the view from the road. You can see the kind of the shape of the house and the way the walkway. This is the living room window there. And this is where we are today. We've been on the inside. We've still got we're now installed. We've got the first fix electrics in, and we've been looking at different ways of finishing the inside. We've looked at a lot of different clay plasters we could use. We're now moving probably because we're having difficulty in actually getting clay plasterers on site. I think we're probably going to be lime rendering this now, but that's in discussion at the moment. And that brings me to the end. And I think questions come later, but not now. So thank you very much.